I finally saw K-pop Demon Hunters at Christmas because my brother has Netflix and I saw my brother, and so I saw K-pop Demon Hunters. And you know what? It was great. Is this a review, a fight analysis, or a come along with me while I talk about this movie? Yes. I'm Jill Bearup and I'm an actor combatant by choice. By which I mean, I'm not trained as an actor, but I took up stage fighting as a hobby and kind of got obsessed with it, and here we are. We're going to spoil the entirety of the plot of K-pop Demon Hunters today, but the basic premise goeth thusly. In every generation, some hunters are trained. 3 girls in all Korea who can sing really well and use the power of fandom to protect the world from demons by creating the Honmun, which is sort of a magic shield to protect the world from demons, which is powered by the love and connection in our souls, I think. This generation of hunters are Rumi, Zoe, and Mira, aka Huntrix. And they are doing such a good job that the King of the Demons is really not happy. Until this guy Genu says, hey, I've got an idea, why don't we go after what powers the Honmun directly? Why not go after the love of their fans? Why not a demon boy band? Yeah, that'll work. Side note, this video is also available on Patreon without ads, for free, and unedited, because I have no idea how much I'm gonna have to butcher this script to make it YouTube compliant. Let the viewer understand, not because of bad words, just because of clips of the movie. There'll be a link in the pinned comment. Moving on. Please understand that this is a children's movie, and so it's required not to be too scary. It's also a musical, and so you can have all of your fight scenes in time to the music. And because it's animated, you can be as off the wall as you want. Sometimes literally off the wall. You see what I did there. And I've got to say, I love Huntrix's opening number. How it's done is a perfect introduction to them for many reasons, but one of those reasons is that if you don't like how it's done, you're probably not going to enjoy this movie. If within the first couple of minutes you're like, this is weird, then you're not going to enjoy K-pop Demon Hunters, and that's okay, you can go watch something else. But if you do like it, then you know what you're getting. Followed up by the fact that someone shouts, leading us to the conclusion that they frequently just arrive out of the sky with no parachutes at their concerts. Sure, why not? Great special effects, bruh. And then we have these silhouettes towering over the demons who are crouched on the ground to give us the impression that Huntrix are clearly at the top of their game. Great introduction. It sets up our heroines, it tells us that demon fighting is just a normal part of their lives. It's exciting without being too scary for the kids, and it sets our heroines up as magical badasses who can jump out of planes without parachutes and strum weapons into existence. I also really like how the singing is animated, because yes, Rumi, I too would back off on the microphone if I were going from a G5 to an A5. Yeah. I think there's also like a C6 in this song. Just, it's very high, but I don't know who's singing it because no one is on the screen at the time. And I'm like, I just don't know where this C is coming from. Never mind. I really enjoy all of the music in this film, but I have to say that most of it I enjoy more to sing along to than to actually listen to, because I find the production clean to the point of eeriness. I mean, I definitely prefer the songs where you can hear them breathe every now and again. I don't need to hear every breath, I understand, you know, editing, production, it's a thing, but I like to hear them breathe sometimes, you know. After this introductory fight, there are no more fights for a little while, so I'd just like to take this opportunity to say that this movie taught me that springtime in Korea has extremely changeable weather. Because watching the performance of Soda Pop, you think to yourself, why is everybody wearing different clothing? Why is everyone dressed for a different season? They're not. They're just all dressed for springtime in Korea. This is where we have our proper introduction to the Saja Boys, and let's be real, if the Honmun was actually a thing and a demon boy band could harm it, we would all be in serious trouble, because
it's infectious.
Yep, the Saja Boys are going to be on a variety show, so Huntrix decide that is the time to go take them out. And so they suit up, hilariously. Going to kill the Saja Boys doesn't work out for our heroines.
So hot and respectful.
I have no idea why so hot and respectful makes me laugh the way it does, but every so often I'll be doing something completely unrelated, and then I will think, so hot and respectful, and then I'll be grinning in the cheese aisle at Aldi and everyone's looking at me like I'm a bit strange. Undeterred by their initial failure, Huntrix followed the Saja Boys out of the studio and into a bathhouse. Also, Zoe still trying to sell Rumi on bathhouses and Jinu slipping on the water is a perfect 1-2 combination of humor. But Rumi deciding that she's going to chase Jinu specifically means that Zoe and Mira are now on their own, fighting all those water demons. Rumi's sword is bluer again here, and she's wildly swinging with her lightsaber before we cut back to Zoe and Mira who are struggling. But more on that in a moment. I really enjoy this part with Rumi and Jinu because he starts by trying to throw her off emotionally and then just starts chucking things at her, and that's pretty funny. And you can tell when he's actually trying because his eyes go gold and his hands go kind of claw-like. So he throws a barrel, Rumi cuts the barrel with a sword, he misses, she misses, he catches her arm. Oh dear. And then my absolute favorite, he fakes an attack and teleports, but she anticipates him and applies boot to torso in a very effective manner. And then we have, of course, the typical enemies to lovers struggle with a blade. Please note that Jinu can hold the handle of her sword to push it away, but he's holding her hand rather than the blade of the sword, whereas Rumi has her bare fingers, because we saw them earlier, on the blade of the sword, and it's not causing her any harm. And then he finds out that she's part demon. What a twist! We already knew that, but that's not the point. And Jinu does the first selfless thing he's done since, I don't know, since he made a little hat for the tiger and covers her arm so she can go help her friends. We're back to Mira and Zoe, and the thing is, it's not that she needs to save them because they're incapable, it's that they work as a trio. And they don't work as well if there are only 2 of them there. They're not incapable, they're just outnumbered. But there follows a very fun part where we're slaying demons left, right, and center, and it's so thoughtfully put together and stylishly set up. The way Rumi sprints through the frame and out of focus, and then the scraping sound of the sword, but it doesn't really seem to cause any damage, except to the head of the demon, which is appearing, obviously. And then the camera sweeps back to Zoe, performing a sort of shockwave thing. All of them can do this, but I think this is the first time we see it. Before she literally bounces off some walls and then gets out the throwing knives in earnest. She usually has 6 throwing knives, but we'll come back to that later. She throws one of the knives and we follow the path of it so we can see what Rumi and Mira are doing, and it's just so well put together, I love it. And even though Zoe seems to be throwing wildly and they all seem to be running around wildly, the knives are just never where Rumi and Mira are at any point. And then we get to my actual favourite bit, maybe. After Mira kicks her blade into the ground, they all just kind of grab onto it as a handle for some very violent gymnastics. It's my favourite part for many reasons. First, because it has this cool kind of spinny 3D with a fisheye on it effect, and I like that. Second, because it shows how well they work together as a team. My underrated favourite line from later in the movie is, all our songs are 3-part harmonies, because they work together or not at all. But it's also my favourite bit, because this part of the handle of Mira's weapon is glowing in its entirety. That sounds kind of dumb, so let me explain. Rumi's sword has a handle, but the core of it is the glowing Hanmoon stuff, but it has what looks like a metal part that she puts her hand on. But again, unlike the demons, Rumi can put her bare hands onto the glowing parts of her own sword, whereas anytime we see the skin of the demons touch any part of the glowy thing, they just evaporate, basically. But Rumi can not only touch her own sword blade with her bare fingers, but also the glowy, non-sharpened part of Mira's blade too. This part is supposed to be a handle, I know, but imagine if you hit a demon with it. You would probably burn them or something. Canonically, the only time that any demon ever blocks an attack is with a weapon. The Hanmoon basically gives them spirit lightsabers with which they can melt their way through demons, and yet Rumi can touch it. Always, at all points in her journey, and not be harmed. And since we brought up details about all of them in the previous fight, now seems a good time to talk about the weapons, so let's do that. They're all based on traditional Korean weapons as far as I can tell, but it's hard to find information on them in English, so Zoe has throwing knives, which are modelled on a kind of shamanic knife, all of which are called sinkal or shinkal, but I found these on the Encyclopedia of Korean Folklore from the National Folk Museum, and that's my best guess as to what they're modelled on. Mira has a polearm, which the creators call a kukdo. Let me know how my pronunciation was. It's spelled gokdo, though. See what I mean? I think the reason they use this designation is, with a lot of things, the blade goes into the hilt like this, whereas on Mira's, the blade and the shaft connect at a 90-degree angle. She has a polearm, anyway, but if you try searching kukdo, you just get a bunch of articles about Mira's weapon in K-pop Demon Hunters, and if you try searching the Korean word using, you know, the Korean alphabet, you get a bunch of curved knives, like kitchen knives. But yes, she gets a polearm, and I like it because it suits her flowy, sweepy kind of style, and she is the tallest member of Huntrix, so it makes sense that she gets the biggest weapon. And again, basically these blades are lightsabers, and so they're nigh impossible to block if you're a demon. Or at least, very difficult to block. Rumi has a sword. Well, spoiler, Rumi has 2 swords, or possibly 1 sword in 2 forms. The one she uses for most of the movie is a single-handed, straight-edged, double-sided sword, which I believe is pronounced Saingon, a four tigers evil slayer, which is definitely the name of my new punk band. But the other tidbit I got about this kind of sword is that it was apparently used by royalty, and she is, of course,
pop star royalty!
I see what you did there. At the end of the movie, she gets this design, which is comedically oversized. But again, when you're basically wielding a spiritual lightsaber, the weight is just made up, surely. Who knows what weight it is? Or if it weighs anything at all. It's quite similar to the shape of some of the shamanic divine knives, and allegedly inspired by the 7-star sword, which is pronounced roughly Chusongkal? Something like that. I did find a search which called this kind of shape the kidney knife, but you know what? That just sounds so much less impressive than the 7-star sword, right? Regardless, back to the plot, where Jinoo has discovered that Rumi has patterns. In order to meet Rumi and discover her weaknesses, Jinoo sends the tiger and the bird. Man, the tiger and the bird. The tiger and the bird are very popular in our house. My daughter is obsessed with the tiger and the bird. I had to buy the Funko Pop for her birthday. Nobody tell her. And of course Jinoo writes vertically because,
Oh, you're so old.
I'm also old, and you can tell that I'm old because I really hate all of their shoes. Listen, I lived through the 90s. I was alive in the 90s. I remember the Spice Girls and the platforms and the ugly sneaker trainer things. We seem to have now combined them, though I suppose you're less likely to break your neck in today's iteration, so good? Rumi is a compulsive liar. She lies all the time to the people closest to her, but she also does that because she was told to by her mentor. Essentially, though, the source of Rumi's shame is that she feels she is tainted by evil since she was born, and I'm sorry, Rumi, that's just the universal human condition. But in any kind of belief system, secular or religious, you have to find a way to deal with the parts of people which are bad because everybody's got them. And unfortunately for Rumi, the way that Celine has chosen is...
Our faults and fears must never be seen. It's the only way to protect the Hunmun.
Now, whether this belief is something that Celine comes up with or it's because she's been taught that by the person who came before her and the person who came before her is not clear. I would err on the side of assuming that it's a hunter's thing. No, we must never let anybody see our faults. But that means that all of them have to maintain a facade of perfection, which is probably also a comment on the K-pop idol industry. I really don't know anything about it, but it seems unforgiving. Yeah. I'm sure most of you know more about K-pop than I do, so you can leave a comment and tell me what you think. Rumi does summarize this problem herself later on in the movie.
I spent my whole life keeping this secret, this shame of what I am. And the more I hid the shame, the more it grew and grew until it started to destroy the one thing that gave me a purpose.
Yeah. Irony. And she's in love with Jinoo, but it is not the love for Jinoo that helps, really, except insofar as it means that she can be honest with him. Regardless, this first meeting between Rumi and Jinoo ends inconclusively, and Huntrix decide that what they need is the diss track to end all diss tracks. And that's how we get Takedown, and please note that any time that they sing Takedown, things are not going well. I mean, sometimes they're killing demons and they're doing okay, they're winning the battles but they're losing the war, or they sing Takedown when fighting demons and it isn't as strong a song as usual and so it doesn't go as well, or they sing Takedown and it's actually a bunch of demons pretending so that they can show everyone that Rumi is a demon. Takedown, not a great song for you. In the same way, at no point in the movie do they ever finish singing Golden. It always gets interrupted by something, which is possibly a metaphor for how perfection is unattainable in this life, or possibly it's a metaphor for how they haven't actually self-actualized, as it were. They haven't actually dealt with all of their faults and fears. They've just hidden them, and so they can't finish singing Golden because it's not true yet. Who knows? But as I've pointed out before, the girls have written some stuff about the Sasha boys on the wall. I do enjoy Do Not Get Distracted by Very Handsome Faces and Bodies, but Tax Evasion, I think, is my favourite. Anyway, there's a joint signing with Huntrix and the Sasha boys. Everyone is noticing the Reginu chemistry. I mean, okay, I hate portmanteau couple names generally, but I laughed. And regardless, the situation is getting worse. Rumi has a plan though, to wit, win the Idol Awards, seal the Hunmoon, and Jinoo can be on this side of it, and then he won't be able to hear Gima anymore, and it'll all be great. Right? But the Hunmoon is still breaking, and so is Huntrix, which brings us to the most depressing fight in the entire movie, which is naturally set to Takedown. First, Huntrix are arguing on top of the train while fighting the demons, and then get distracted from what they're actually doing because they're too busy insulting each other and then immediately regretting it. And then, oh no, a huge tear, like the tears in their relationship. They start to sing Takedown, but Rumi... Oh no, they know she's a demon and Zoe can't muster more than a single pair of knives to defend herself against her friend, but still, she drew knives on you. That's gotta hurt. The people in this movie act so rationally sometimes. I mean, they have faults, and those faults lead to bad things happening, but they mostly just act so rationally, and it's great. They're not even necessarily that mad at her for being a demon. They're mad that she didn't trust them with this secret, rather than they're mad at her for being a demon, because obviously she's not wholly a demon, because that's not how that could possibly work. Almost like trust and friendship are the points of the movie. Hooray! From a choreography standpoint, I find it difficult to talk about K-pop demon hunters because the conceit is that they have magical weapons that can basically burn their way through demons. Like, I keep saying lightsabers, but it is the closest comparator. But nonetheless, I appreciate the care and the thought and the energy which went into making the fight scenes. Big, medium, small weapon is matched to big, medium, small member of Huntrix. That just tickles me. Also, I just really enjoy the movie, so it's easy to find nice things to say about it. Which is probably why this script is 10 pages long and only slightly about the fights. But, you know, I tried. The script was also filmed in 4 sections because of people doing things outside and also camera trouble. So, as you can see, the whiteboard with algebra on it appeared and then disappeared again. I don't know how long this video is going to be for YouTube. Like I said, there are probably going to be some copyright-related constraints, but the Patreon version will have everything, including all of the stupid random tangents, including possibly one about the Barbie movie. I haven't decided if that's going to stay in yet, but you never know. Regardless, I hope you're having a great day. This video is sponsored by me. You can buy my book, but that costs money, so you could just subscribe, because that's free. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.